disasters are increasing worldwide in the frequency and intensity, leaving survivors with nothing but trauma and suffering. Typhoon Haiyan was one of the most powerful typhoons ever recorded in history to hit the Philippines on November 8, 2013. Haiyan's onslaught devastated lives, properties, infrastructures, and natural resources in the eastern Visayas region. Life after Haiyan became meaningless and served as a living hell for many of several months. But days after the disaster, national and international relief assistance started pouring in. After the super typhoon, each minute was like a lifetime of trauma and suffering for them. How did the people in the eye of the storm cope with this unthinkable tragedy? The answer is resilience. The amazing resilience of Filipinos stems from their strong faith. Faith gave them much needed strength to withstand those terrible losses after Typhoon Haiyan. Their spirituality enabled them to accept and adapt to sudden tragic changes in their lives. The culture, social bonding, and collective action helped them cope with the tragedy and move on with life. It is not surprised that after Yolanda, Filipinos turned to their churches to find solace and hope in life all over again. The church also ensured a peaceful journey of the departed souls that was essential to reduce their trauma. Many other local organizations and local government units have also played a pivotal role in aiding people for their survival in the first few days after the disaster. All disasters prove that the crucial point for survival is the time gap between a disaster and the support that it arrives. As proved in the case of Haiyan, help can only come from the people themselves and the institutions that are in the front line of the disaster. Therefore, it is important to build local capacities and preparedness in the communities, local government units, organizations, and faith institutions to reduce future disaster losses. The Swedish Civil Contingency Agency, or MSP, and United Nations Development Program, UNDP, have therefore initiated community-based disaster risk reduction programs in Tacloban City and Palo in the province of Leyte, Philippines, in the partnership with the Roman Catholic Archdiocese Relief and Rehabilitation Unit, RCARRU.
Reducing disaster risk and enhancing our resilience to disasters requires not only an individual action, all our other actions which are aimed at different kinds of development processes. There's still a long way to go in realizing the risk perceptions in various activities that we do for our development. So when we realize that as a human society, I think we have substantially reduced the risks that we have created for ourselves around.
The CBDRRM approach prioritizes communities who are the front lines of the immediate impact of disaster and emergency response to reduce vulnerabilities and enhance their capacities. So the barangays themselves will have to undertake the vast majority of DRM actions through a bottom-up approach.
The first responders in any calamity are your neighbors. It will take some time for the government to arrive in a community. It will take probably weeks and months before international aid agencies will arrive in the community to provide help, especially if these are secluded and isolated barangays. Our experience in the Yolanda made us become aware that there are barangays not reachable by aid agencies for safety reasons or maybe for logistical reasons. So we believe that the first responder should be the community, the neighbors, and we try to harness this natural capacity of people to help themselves. That's a basic part of Filipino culture. In Tagalog, we call that bayanihan, but I realized when I stayed here in Waray, they have different names. I heard a term called pintakasi, where they come together and help each other. So we'll build on those natural systems. So we in Caritas Palo are actually very excited that we have something very specific to contribute to the global knowledge about disaster risk reduction, and through the richness of our faith as Filipinos.
After a rigorous consultation with local government authorities and local communities, RCA-RRU selected 6 barangays, each in Tacloban and Palo, based on operational parameters agreed with local government units.
Vulnerability, the capacity, the hazards, and the risk assessment. So therefore, the 3 variables coming from the hazard assessment, vulnerability assessment, and capacity assessment, and then we came out that either the household is high risk, medium risk, or low risk. So it depends upon the classification. So LCM there are 4 minimums. The community managed disaster risk reduction has 4 minimums. One is the participatory disaster risk assessment. 2 is the RR measures, the resiliency contingency plans. That's included the community organizing or community organization, and then the community monitoring, evaluation, and accountability and learning. But in the same, there are only 4 minimums, but we add ones, which is the 5th element, is the faith formation. So faith formation is very important for us because we are also Christians, and we believe that we are created by our creators, and that is God. To further understand the behavior and nature of hazard, if it is necessary to understand the character of a hazard, so the community should know what is the hazard. So first, we have to identify what is the root cause of the hazard, and that's why the Caritas Palo with partner communities identify what would be the hazard, what would be the origin, what would be the force of the hazard, what would be the forewarning of the hazard. So, and what will it hit me, no? And so therefore, hazard assessment is the identification of potential damaging physical event, human activity or phenomenon, no? That could be cause of injury or loss of life. No? And usually we have common mistakes that hazard is referred to by many people as disasters. However, it can only be called disaster when it hits a community which is unusable to cope with its effects. So now, the last part is the risk assessment and analysis. No? Risk assessment is the consolidation of the result from hazard assessment, vulnerability assessment, and capacity assessment. And if we complete the 3 variables, then is the time that we can say that we have a conclusion based on the community, based on the analysis from the community.
Dinhi ha barangay San Roque di rin namon kini-expect nga sugad hini ang naging output hanira mapa kay in 4 days time natapos nila nakatupok na rin sugad hini nga mapa kompleto nga mga puroks, 7 puroks. So they have completed the 7 puroks in just 4 days. So it's very interesting na nakatapos sila hini nga mga mapa burubligay hara and na nabutang nira nga tanan na household mga household profile in one map talaga.
Most important and unique feature of this community-based disaster risk reduction initiative is the integration of culture and faith as social capital of disaster resilience.
As we have seen after Yolanda, the most of the communities have have found their resilience, their coping system from the faith. They looked up to the God, looked towards the church, they looked towards the superpower in order to console themselves, in order to reorganize themselves, in order to find a new hope and new light in life.
We can see how God prepare people for a disaster. For example, in the book of Genesis, when God told Noah what to do, when a disaster was about to happen, for that great deluge, he asked Noah to make of an ark in order to save his family and to save the animals. In other words, God was preparing Noah for a future. That even though this deluge will destroy much of the earth, yet there is a future waiting for his family. That's why that ark was being prepared.
The project has supported several barangays in identifying present risks in their communities, and the communities in their turn are transferring the information to the local governments. And the intention is that this method is going to be transferred to other municipalities throughout the country. MSB believes that this kind of a project is a role model for how we should work with disaster risk reduction, especially in terms of working at several levels simultaneously. It is necessary to involve civil society as well as local and regional and national governments. MSB is grateful to have been able to support UDP in their important work assisting the Philippine authorities and civil society in recovering from the disaster, as well as to increase their resilience.
Since the majority of the population in the Philippines are Catholics, the Catholic Church serves as the other source of moral authority and inspiration. Therefore, priests and lay evangelizers must educate the faithful, especially those in vulnerable barangays, that the task of transforming themselves into a resilient community is not just based on the law, but is also a demand of our faith.
Faith in God is the best resiliency factor. It helps people survive, it helps people recover. But faith in God also helps people respond to the call of helping others.
This project harnessed the strengths of existing faith-based basic ecclesial communities, or BEC, initiatives to mainstream DRR into the community way of life through increasing their awareness and build disaster resilience. BEC volunteers are as trained first responders to provide physical, spiritual, and psychological assistance in disasters. With the right motivation and acceptance in communities, BEC volunteers always respond to the needs of communities. The sharing of people's experience and knowledge within BECs has proved to be the main source of spiritual and emotional strength after major disasters like Typhoon Yolanda. In order to institutionalize the knowledge and experience gained in this unique initiative, RCA-RRU has established Disaster Management Training Institute to train BECs from all over the country on disaster resilience. Use of theater and cultural arts proved to be effective in drawing interest, creating awareness, and enlist active participation of communities.
Pag-ibig tulad ng batis, diwa ko. Pag-ibig tulad ng batis, tulad ng batis. Pag-ibig tulad ng batis, diwa ko.
During naging evacuation to dito, before sila matulog, pinapakanta namin yun sa mga bata. Parang naging lullaby song siya sa kanila. Pati yung mga matatanda, yung mga parents na din, nag-join na din sila. Yung kantang yung ginagawa namin during our psychosocial activities dito sa office para ma-stress debrief yun naman yung mga bata, tapos makapag-enjoy naman sila kahit paano. Isang project ng Caritas Palo, gumawa ng yung CMDRR, yung may component ng faith, culture and resiliency. So isang kalakip doon na program is yung gumawa ng theater group na siyang magpapaano naman sa mga community in a theater approach na ma-show namin yung resiliency na program sa mga different barangays through our theater presentation. Ang pinakaunang naging audience namin, parang premiere show siya, yung mga staff namin dito. So yung ginawa namin after the performance, nag-suggest sila ng mga comments to improve the show before namin siya isabak sa different barangays. Yung mga volunteers namin sa theater arts group, yung iba nakilala na lang namin during our psychosocial activities na ginagawa sa different barangays. Nakita namin yung mga potential. May evacuees. Tapos sila talaga lahat certified survivors talaga ng Yolanda.
Promotion of faith as a social capital of resilience and the use of the theater to create awareness model has caught the attention of national and international media.
It's important to understand that the resilience of communities does not come only from financial resources or material resources. The resilience of communities is essentially coming from their inherent self-worth, self-value, self-respect, and the dignity and the faith that they have in the system that they are living in.
Since the faith is important in the Philippines, when a disaster has struck a community, the priests are often the first ones that people tend to go to. So one of the methods that we have been using in this project is to work through faith.
The Faith-Based Disaster Resilience Project promotes community-based disaster risk reduction and management with faith as a social capital in disaster resilience. The project, implemented on a pilot scale, is well appreciated by communities, local government units, and donors. With energy and encouragement drawn from active community participation and appreciation, the project will be replicated in other barangays in Tacloban and Palo by local government units and institutions.